Hey guys, I'm Hyozi. Last time I managed to beat fossil fighters using only fire Vivosaurs after a lot, and I mean a lot, of ups and downs. So this time, I'll be using Earth Element Vivosaurs, who I assume are more defense-based considering they contain Vivosaurs like Das Pleto and Salto. Earth Vivosaurs are strong against air, but weak against fire. Knick-Knack will hopefully be easy this time, and I'm guessing Bulwart will be difficult in his first fight, since he has both the Fire Amargo and Shuno. The rules for this challenge are simple. I'm only allowed to use Earth Element Vivosaurs in battle. If the story requires me to have other Vivosaurs on my team, I can include them. However, I'm not allowed to use their abilities in any way, meaning no attacking and no buffing. If I'm forced to use a non-Earth Element Vivosaur and they are the only one remaining on my team, then that fight will be treated as a loss and I'll have to restart it. I'm also playing with level caps, meaning my Vivosaur's levels cannot exceed the level of the current level cap, usually dictated by the ace of the next level up fight. If one of my Vivosaurs has a higher level than the level cap, I cannot use it in battle until the level cap increases. Finally, I'm not allowed to use glitches, cheats, or exploits in any way. Now, let's begin the challenge. This time, I pick Lexo as my favorite Vivosaur, since I can get a Lexo pretty early, and they're the only Earth Element choice. This gives my character a white shirt with light blue trim, yellow shorts, and light brown hair. Great, now I have to play with my character on light mode. Once again, I have to skip the Greenhorn Plains section, as it contains only air Vivosaurs. You should probably get used to hearing that. Greenhorn Plains doesn't really work with many challenges. After that short 1 hour skip, I can revive my first Vivosaur of the run, Venator. Venator is essentially an Earth Element Spinax or Giganto. They're just a big guy that has high attack. That's great, especially compared to the last run, where I started with S-Raptor and my little man Nichus. Venator also gives a 10% attack boost to my AZ. However, Venator alone isn't enough to make it through the attendant blocking the way. So I also need to revive one of the two donation Vivosaurs, F-Raptor. F-Raptor is also just a big guy, but he's better than Venator except in defense. However, as a donation fossil, all of F-Raptor's fossils are red fossils, giving an extra 25 points to their cleaning score and making level managing a bit difficult in the early game. Another big problem with F-Raptor is them being a Japanese Vivosaur. The three Japanese Vivosaurs, being F-Raptor, Futabi, and the post-game locked Mihu, only like each other, and can only use their team skills when paired with each other. But that's not really a concern right now, as I can't use team skills anyways. Luckily, the level cap is 3, so after losing to the attendant a few times, I can pick up F-Raptor's body fossil and easily take out the attendant next time. Then I can watch Rosie receive divine punishment, chase off the BB Grunt, Rex, and Snivels with ease, and revive my next two Vivosaurs, Pachi and Lexo, from the Digadigamid. Pachi is a long-range attacker, which is nice, but currently doesn't have the stats to fully utilize it. Lexo currently has high health, but as a small Vivosaur I expect them to fall off quickly in that department. Lexo has good poison skills and a rare sleep skill, but the sleep skill is only 40% accurate, and the poison currently uses a lot of FP. Not to mention Lexo's support effects are irrelevant for now, as they only lower accuracy by 20% and evasion by 10%. I know it sounds like I'm being a bit harsh with Lexo, but they might get better later on as I get more FP per turn. They also act like Megath did in my first video, allowing me once again to abuse Super Enrage if there are any Earth Vivosaurs that use it. After reviving those two, I make quick work of Vivian and head to the Fossil Stadium to fight Nevada. I do get a short scare, not the status effect, when Nevada takes out her own U-Raptor with my Lexo's auto counter. This gives her a refilled FP pool for her Nichus to finish off Lexo. Nevada then has her full health Nichus and Lexo left, while I only have a full health Venator and an almost dead F-Raptor, and I'm worried that this will be a loss. But Venator managed to crit and take out Nichus in one hit, leaving Nevada's Lexo to get beaten shortly after. Unfortunately, Rivet Ravine only has one Earth element available to me when it first opens, and that's only at the very end. So I have to first quickly defeat the BB Grunts, Holt, who's far easier this time compared to my fire run, And finally, Rex and Snivels, just to unlock Orano. Orano's support effects are okay. A -7 to everything isn't good, but lowering attack and defense by anything makes them usable. Orano's attack also costs a decent chunk of FP, so utilizing them isn't the easiest in the early game. Late game they're not much better, since Orano only learns the counter ability, which is just Link, but with an FP cost, and it requires the opponent to hit the counterer first, so it's less reliable. But like I said, a -7 attack and defense is good enough for me now. After that revival, all that's left is just my level up fight. But Holt is still really easy, so I'll just move on to McJunker. McJunker begins with a Fiendish Ram on F-Raptor, and then a Serrato Fang, totaling to a little over half. I hit a Savage Bite on Serrato for a little under half, and then F-Raptor gets knocked by a Serrato combo. Venator comes forward and uses 2 Venator bites on Serrato, bringing them low enough to be taken out by a return to F-Raptor's Savage Bite. Kentro comes forward and takes out F-Raptor together with Steige, giving me just enough FP to take out Kentro back after 2 turns. Steige is the last remaining, and they get taken out with 2 hits from Venator, making a pretty easy level up fight. Okay, so now I'm confused. Woolbeard's ship is open now, so I start gathering jewel rocks to find the rare Earth fossil that I mentioned last video. I upgrade my sonar screen, get both filters, and get 1 chip. And then find a rare Earth fossil? Giganto only appeared after I got both fossil chips, but this one is after just 1? Was I just extremely unlucky with Giganto somehow? Or is this fossil different? I have no idea anymore how these rare fossils work. But anyway, after a lot of money and donation point collecting, I get my 2 new and powerful Vivosaurs, Seismo and Compso. Seismo honestly made me laugh. They have a huge amount of health, reaching over 200 at just level 4, but they only have 11 attack and 7 defense. Plus their moves all cost a ton of FP to use, with the cheapest being 150 FP. Seismo is definitely more of a frontline meat shield than anything else, especially since they recover 5% of their health per turn, and their horrendous support effects lower my defense by 50%. I don't really see myself using them yet, since damage is more important, but having a defender is nice, and will probably get far better if I get a Harden user. Compso, on the other hand, may be small, but is a real monster. Compso lowers my opponent's attack and defense by 90%, essentially being a combination of Guan and Saichon from last video, but on my opponent instead of me. Compso also has the FP Plus ability, which gives me more FP per turn and is just always good. After spending hours getting those 2, I can now begin Knickknack's fetch quest. Rex is no issue, as usual, so I get the Molted Bug Shell easily. Snivels was actually a problem though, mainly because I wanted to try out Seismo. Since Seismo's moves cost so much FP, I have to wait 2 turns before attacking with them. But once I do, I'm able to one-shot Futabi with a Tremor Tail. Karchar retaliates with a Karchar Fury, knocking Seismo and forcing me to bring in Venator. Venator hits Karchar twice before getting one-shot himself by Lambeo's countering coup. Countering as in the name, not the counter ability. Seismo does about 2/3 to Lambeo, then takes out Karchar, before going down and leaving me with just fragile little Compso. Compso needs to get a crit Compso kick in order to win, and luckily does, taking out Lambeo and preventing me from being punished for bringing in Seismo. Now that Snivels is gone, Greenhorn Plains opens their pay-to-dig site, giving me another 3 revivals with Carno, Karchar, and Centro. Carno is a lone wolf Vivosaur, meaning they don't have a team skill. Looking past that though, their stats are mediocre and they specialize in knock moves, which are helpful, but not helpful enough to warrant using them. Karchar, however, is a direct upgrade from Venator in all but support effects. Karchar has amazing health, massive attack, and respectable defense, so they'll be used immediately to replace Venator. Finally, there's Centro. Centro is literally just an Earth Element Xyno, with the only real difference being that Centro has actually good support effects. If I can make a team for Centro, you know I'm going to try to. especially with that Dinomatin fight that I used Zyno for later on. Now that I have Kamso and Karchar, both Vivian and Woolbeard were easy wins, and I was able to move straight to my level up fights. Knickknack did mess up my initial plan, as they knocked Seismo before I could use them to take out M-Raptor. However, Venator did massive damage to Elasmith and Styraco before Seismo returned to take out M-Raptor and Styraco. Venator then finished off Elasmith in another short level up fight. I'm a level 5 fighter now, so Rosie gets kidnapped again. But more importantly, I get access to the BB base, and their 3 Earth Vivosaurs Pelto, Daspleto, and Salto. Pelto is a pretty good supporter, as they have high defense, support effects that lower attack by 40%, and harden to protect my Kamso. Their sleep skill is cool, but the sleep effect is only 40% accurate, so Pelto's main things are what I mentioned before. Daspleto is essentially a Karchar, but with more defense. I just got Karchar, and their position is already being challenged. Finally, Salto is a long-range sauropod like Seismo, but actually has usable moves. This lets me actually use my long-range Kamso strategy. Since Kamso support effects disappear on a switch, it's better to leave the AZ Vivosaurs alone, and take out their back row instead. That's where Salto comes in, as they can hit those SZ Vivosaurs with no penalty, and allow Kamso to not have to constantly fear being taken out. Well, you know the drill here. Rex, Snivels, and Vivian were all easy, so let's move straight to Bulwart, who actually caused problems. Round 1, I focused purely on attack, thinking that taking out Shuno before losing Kamso would put me in a good spot. Except Kamso went down first after Amargo switched in. Dealing with 2 fire elements, even if they were pretty low on health, just wasn't possible, marking the first loss since the attendant back in Knotwood Forest. Round 2, I bring in Pelto to apply hardens on Kamso. I managed to take out Shuno this time before losing Kamso, but I also lose Salto in the same turn. That leaves me with just Pelto, who managed to 2-shot Amargo and end in a 1v1 against Salto. Salto is at extremely low health. I mean low enough where Pelto's auto counter will take them out. All I need is for Salto to not crit and I win. But that was my mistake. Because, of course, Salto gets that crit and takes out Pelto. Round 3, I bring Daspleto instead of Salto, for essentially the same strategy, except I'm hitting the AZ instead of the SZ. After a long back and forth of hit, harden, I lose Kamso and take out Shuno next turn. Amargo returns and tries to defeat Pelto, but I hardened them the turn before, so Pelto survives and takes out Amargo. That leaves just Salto against my Pelto and Daspleto, so naturally they didn't stand a chance. Unfortunately though, Karchar reaches level 6, so I can't use them for my level up fight. But that's only the tip of this iceberg, as my first level up fight also brings Kamso past the level cap. So now I have to fight both Mrs. Wriggles and Dr. Diggins without Kamso's amazing support effects. And Dr. Diggins has a Shuno of his own. Mrs. Wriggle isn't much of a fight, so let's just go to Dr. Diggins. Dr. Diggins has his own Shuno in the front, so I start pounding away at it with my Daspleto and Salto. I also have Pelto in the back to nearly cut their attack in half and apply hardens, basically being a budget Kamso. I manage to take out Shuno, but then lose Pelto next turn. However, Dr. Diggins only has the air element Stego and the exhausted Delofo remaining, so the victory was pretty much guaranteed for me. I did cut it really close with my turn limit though, as I needed to use all 10 of my turns to win, so I was actually just barely able to avoid losing. Now I've fully unlocked Mount Lava Flow. Too bad there's no Earth Vivosaurs to revive here though. So let's just move straight into the Duna fight. Last time, Duna was a nightmare, but this time, she's a pushover. Duna's support effects are certainly powerful, however they don't fix Kamso's minus 90% attack. That allows me to easily take out Duna and her Dinomatins, as they're only ever able to do damage once every 2 turns. Once Duna's been defeated, I go revive Igno and fight Bulwart and his Frigi. Now this Frigi fight has to be the easiest one I've had, by far. Turns out that lowering Frigi's attack and defense to 0, together with Bulwart's other support effects, makes the legendary Vivosaur no more dangerous than a newborn kitten. One interesting thing I noticed though is that Salto seems to be doing increased damage. Shockwave does 73 damage, but Frigi actually took 92. That's roughly a 1.2 times increase. Looking this up on the wiki, it turns out that sauropods actually do increased damage when attacking from the SZ, or when attacking the SZ from the AZ. Salto's increase is 1.2 times, while Seismo's is a whopping 1.8 times increase, nearly doubling their damage. I seriously might consider adding Seismo back to the team for that. Plus I can actually attack with them now that Kamso boosts my FP high enough. Anyway, the fight ends with no issues at all, as I just use Salto's Shockwave attack every turn until I've taken out all of Bulwart's team. With Bulwart and Frigi defeated, it's time for my last level up fight. My first opponent is against the King of Evil, Wesley. Last video, Wesley was a monster with his hard-hitting Krona, but this time he was no problem at all. Kamso made Krona weak and unable to deal damage, and Seismo just sat in front to hit Wesley's back row with its 1.8 times multiplier. Mr. Ozowit went down the same way, although I had to take out Steigi first since Seismo didn't deal enough damage to outpace Lambeo's healing. And that leaves just Sorehead, with his Pelto, Pachyrino, and dangerous Guan. Since Guan single-handedly counters my Kamso's attack reduction, and because if left alone it can transform into a T-Rex, I decided to take Guan out first. Sorehead gives me a bit of a scare on his first turn, as Pelto's Earth Spear does decent damage to Kamso, making me worry if I'll lose Kamso before taking out Guan. However, Sorehead then decides to attack Pelto and Seismo, letting me take out Guan after that one Kamso hit. Pachyrino then switches in to remove the 90% debuff, but only hits Seismo for pretty minor damage. So I start chipping away at both Pachyrino and Pelto with Seismo, while applying a Harden on Kamso when Sorehead is about to switch, just in case. Eventually, Seismo hits Pachyrino down to their parting blow range, and decides to hit a terrifyingly hard Pachyrino Fury on Seismo next turn. Luckily, Seismo survives, and I can take out Pachyrino and then finish off Pelto the next turn after. We're nearing the end, so I can now unlock some of my final Vivosaurs from the Rivet Ravine pay-to-dig site, giving me my own Pachyrino and Acro. Pachyrino has pretty good stats, and the best defense-boosting status effects of all my Vivosaurs. Pachyrino also has a 50% Enrage, which is too low to rely on, and an 80% knock if I need it. Acro also has pretty good stats, which are pretty similar to Pachyrino's, but that's about it. While their stats are nice, my team is pretty much set with my two long-range sauropods, my hardening Pelto, hard-hitting Daspleto, and just Kamso, so I more than likely won't be using them. Next comes the Sorehead 5, however the first four of them all went the exact same way. You see, Kamso's FP Plus ability now gives me a little over 230 FP per turn, letting me use Salto's 220 FP team skill to hit all enemies every turn. So for Sorehead's neutral, water, air, and earth teams, I did just that, making the fights pretty uneventful. However, Sorehead's last team was a bit different. Sorehead's last team has the strongest fire element Vivosaur, the T-Rex, who has not only the highest attack, but really good bulk too. That means that Salto won't be able to take out T-Rex before the others, especially if T-Rex switches at any point. If that happens, then T-Rex could return without Kamso's hindrance, and use their strongest attack to destroy me. That's why I decided to bring in Daspleto to challenge and take out T-Rex first. Once that happens, Gorgo comes in and does over half to Kamso, but never switches out for safety, letting me defeat them and Tarbo pretty quickly. The Dinomatans on board the Dinorian mothership went the same way as Sorehead's first four as well. They did switch out a little bit, but it really didn't matter in the end, as I didn't lose anyone to them, so I can now just head to Secret Island and get the last revival, Anato. Anato's stats are really similar to Pachyrino's and Acro's, and also has a 100% accurate Super Confuse skill. However, that skill does no damage at all, and the only other thing they have going for them is the Sacrifice ability, which lets them give their health to other allies. Anato's not very useful to me at this point, but I might as well revive them, right? Now I have to fight Rapton, and decide to try bringing Seismo along to hopefully take him out quicker. Boy, was I wrong. I need 2 turns to charge up Seismo's team skill, and by that point Rapton had already retreated. Seismo's Continental Drift team skill does massive damage to the back row Dino-Matin, and about half to the front row one. However, Rapton returns after, and drops Seismo's accuracy by 77%. In addition, Rapton himself stays in the back all fight, meaning I had to switch between Seismo and Pelto in order to defeat Rapton together with a Dino-Matin at the same time, before taking out the last one. Dino tries the same tactic as Rapton. However, since his Dino-Matins were heavily damaged by his return, Dino moved in front and stayed there after I managed to excite him. This let me take out both Dino-Matins with Salto's team skill, and then bring Salto to the back to hit for increased damage and take out Dino. That leaves just the final boss of this run, Guhnash's 3 brains. There are only 2 things I'm concerned about for this fight. Gweep's team healing skill, which could outpace my team's skill's damage, and Gweep and Galif's whirling displacement, which could force Kamso to the front to then get taken out. I decided to keep Kamso and Pelto in the back, and have Seismo in the front to try and take out Gweep as fast as possible. Gweep does as I thought and immediately whirling displacements my team, however only causes Pelto to switch with Seismo, letting me bring Seismo back and take out Gweep, who for some reason didn't rearrange again. In fact, Galif didn't rearrange either before getting taken out, leaving just Gavorn, who eventually falls after bringing Seismo to the back to deal disgusting amounts of damage in just 2 hits. And now that Guhnash has been defeated, and I once again shake my hips in victory at a woman, please don't sue me, I've beaten fossil fighters with only Earth Element Vivosaurs. This run had to be my easiest run yet. I only lost against 2 people. The Attendant, who was then easily beat after I got F-Raptor, and Bulwart after he got a lucky crit. I don't know how long the video is at this point, since I still have to finish recording the audio at the time of writing this. But I wouldn't be surprised if this is my shortest video, and may even stay that way for some time. Next up is fossil fighters with only water element Vivosaurs. Water doesn't have any sauropods like fire and earth do, so all long-range attackers only have a 1x multiplier. Outside of that, I don't really know much about water Vivosaurs, so it'll be interesting to see how they turn out. Well, that's it for this video, so I'll see you next time. Later.